there's such a wide mix of fascinating people in Los Angeles, and I wanted to find them and introduce them to you, and I think I found a gem here in Dr. Simonian. He's a Harvard and Oxford education transplant surgeon, immunologist. He's a man of peace. He's an author, a philanthropist. He was a surgeon-in-chief to Presidents Reagan and Bush, and we have a little connection with Chicago. I'm from Chicago, and he was doing some work there when I was in high school. But he was also co-invented the freeze-dried smallpox vaccine, he and his team, which has been saving 2 million lives a year since 1977. So, very nice job. And the team was nominated for a Nobel Prize, so I'm sure we'll get to hear about all that. And he has the largest entry in Who's Who, which I'm sure he'll tell you about as well. So, thank you, Dr. Simonian, for coming, and thank you.
Thank you, Prissy, Carl. Well, I appreciate being here, and I appreciate the guests in this room who are very worthy individuals, equal to me. And I count people in the world as equal to each other, rather than hierarchical, rather than competitive. I count people as collaborative, together. And in this room we are going to create a collaborative heaven this afternoon. A collaborative paradise together in this afternoon, to see what it's like to live in heaven on earth and paradise on earth, which we can achieve quite easily if we have one common purpose and we collaborate to achieve that one common purpose. And the purpose is usually to achieve basic needs for our survival and thriving, growth and multiplication. The reason we have these wars and this disunity, this anger, and this fighting going on is because there's competition. There's competition for scarce resources, and people are competing. The winners take it, the losers are unhappy, they are depressed, they are in anxiety, they are angry, they are hateful, and they want to revenge back. So there is violence, there is war. And this is the old style which has to be stopped. In its place, we have to replace the world with collaboration for a common purpose. When there is a common purpose and collaboration, the team is united. And the team of different experts work together to achieve that purpose. And these differences are made by our Creator for a purpose. Each person has a unique gift that contributes to the collective whole collaboration. Look at my face, look at your face. There are eyes which are different from the ears. There are nose which is different from the others, and the mouth. And yet they collaborate for the common purpose of our survival. And they are all needed there. And they therefore achieve our needs to eat, to see, to hear, and to survive, and to grow and multiply. Another example of collaboration is music, and we have an expert professional musician in our room, Stephen Fisk, that gentleman, young man who's dyed his hair white. And he's Stephen Longfellow Fisk. He's a composer of music and as singing and guitarist and professional. And so in music, as you know, in an orchestra, there are different instruments, like there are different things in our body. Our fingers are different, yet they collaborate in a collaborative way to achieve our needs. If everything was the same, everything was a little finger in this hand, it wouldn't work. So that's why our Creator made them different, to make it work. And we have to take that as an example for us to emulate and to imitate and to copy and do likewise, to bring a heaven on earth world, a paradise on earth world. So the musicians are playing different instruments. They are playing different tunes, but for a common purpose, to create a wonderful melody with harmony, with justice, with peace. You don't see musicians, the violinist taking the violin and hitting the cellist on the head like they do in, many political things, sometimes fist fighting, because they are competing. And because they are competing in the politics, whether it's Parliament, or the House, or the Senate, they don't achieve anything. They don't achieve anything. Huh? They are revengeful, the people suffer, and we don't have peace. There is no peace. So competition must go out, and collaboration must come in its place, in our new world of heaven on earth, and peace on earth, and paradise on earth, and in this room particularly now. And another example, I would say, is driving. Driving our vehicles on the roads. Look at the collaboration we have. Look how we collaborate. We don't say, oh, I want to compete with this guy because he is this religion, or because he is this ethnic group, because he is this color. We are all equal on the road. We are all equal. We are all going to our common purpose, our destination, safely, effectively, efficiently, by obeying what? Laws. By obeying laws that are the common laws for everyone to obey. And they are enforced. And if you don't, your license taken away. So you have to obey to get to your destination. And most of us have driven more than 1,000 times and arrived to our homes safely and efficiently and effectively because of these collaborative, collective, and laws which are common for everybody. Just like musicians, just like driving, just like eyes, face, mouth, everything is collaborating. And the biggest collaboration is a secret. Our bodies have 50 trillion cells. There are liver cells different from the heart cells, different from the lung cells, different from the brain cells, and different from the intestinal cells, and so on and so forth. All these different cells, 50 trillion. We are only 7, 8 billion on this billion. The other, 1,000 times more, and 50 trillion each billion. 1,000 billion is 1 trillion. So 50 trillion cells have come together somehow in a collaborative, collective, different, yet working together by the same common laws for eating food together, communicating together in a loving, helpful way as one team, united, not competing. And they are there, they have their own security. They have a security system. If a germ comes in, they know how to detect the germ, and they begin to prepare an attack to kill the germ so they can survive. And sometimes, if it's a little too much, we can help with antibiotics and so on and so forth. So, you see, my friends, the body is a heaven on earth. The body is a paradise on earth. It works automatically for sometimes 100 years. So these miracles we can duplicate in our own world. And what we need to do there is to trust a common purpose. Another example I could give you about a collective and collaborative thing that worked is, you know, Santa Barbara, about 100 miles north of here. It's a beautiful city on the ocean, and, you know, high-end, wealthy people, famous people live there, including Oprah Winfrey. She has a small house, it's only $50 million. You know, it's just enough for herself. So, but in 1994, they found, for some reason, gangsters in Santa Barbara, gangsters. They were killing each other. There were deaths every other day, shooting each other, and a danger to this peaceful society. So they tried, the police tried, by themselves, okay, not collaboration, by themselves. It didn't work. The church tried, by themselves, not collaboration. It didn't work. Oh, the social workers started to help. It didn't work. These are all three different kinds of specialists, but each trying singularly, competitively with the others, because they want to show that the social worker is superior to the police and the police superior to the church. And it didn't work. Then somebody had an idea. Somebody who was a reformed gangster from New York, Foleyami by name, was living in that area. He came and volunteered to help. He brought 30 different specialties together into the city. Businesses, the mayor, the police, the firemen, everybody who was a specialist, brought them together into a common purpose to deal with this gangster problem, achieve the need that the city wanted. And including some of the gangsters were invited to come sit with the mayor in a round table like this with chairs, equal, everybody equal, working together to solve the problem. And in about 2 years, the gangsters began to go from 100% to 7%. They eliminated 93% of the gangster problem by working together in a collaborative way, creating again that happened in Santa Barbara, and so on. So now I'd like, with this introduction, to ask anyone who has a comment to come forward and say something that they have been thinking about for a better world that we deserve to live together with justice, all our needs met. Everybody has a job. Everybody has an education. Everybody has learned to have good civil relationships with their spouses, with their children, with their grandchildren, with their neighbors. And everybody knows about the golden rule, but for the first time they are going to put it into practice. The golden rule, which we all know, says, there's our Creator who created us and said, "Oh, Simon, I created you, I love you, and remember to love me back, so we please each other." And then he said, "Look, I also created your sisters and your brothers. Remember, I love them too. Oh, please, love them also equally like I do." And I said, "Okay, we'll put that into practice." But this hasn't happened. See, we haven't loved our brothers and sisters as we love our Creator and ourselves. And we have to learn to love ourselves, which we haven't learned to do, put into practice. So I'd like some comments how we could do this golden rule and at the same time meet our needs together by working together for the common purpose. Let's say one common purpose would be food, one common purpose would be jobs, another would be dwelling, another clothing, another education, another environment, another politics, another religion, and we all have our needs met and we have a heaven on earth. Please, Stephen Fisk.
You have described 50 trillion cells in the human body. What a model it is of interdependence and interconnectivity, of working together. All the different sectors and parts of society are like the cells. Why is it that we can't even see that model in our own body and emulate that model in our social fabric?
Very good, very good. We'll try and come to a consensus eventually to answer these. Next comment, please. Lindsay Ross.
I just thought of an analogy between the psychopathic mind.
Speak loud as you can. Yes, you can stand up and speak for everyone.
Well, the psychopaths among us, might they be analogous to a cancerous cell among those 50 trillion, which, takes more than its share, keeps growing, and eventually kills the whole creature.
Good point. Ellen Coleman.
Should I stand up?
Yes, please. Stand and speak loudly.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I was thinking, we have sometimes with disasters, groups of entertainers who come together, like Robin Williams and Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal founded Comic Relief. And they had maybe 10 or 12 of them over the years. And I'm thinking that, especially with the arts and music and dance, that we should have collaborations, but amongst people from all over the world. So music and dance and comedy and the arts, we have these festivals that get televised, put on the internet, of collaboration with people from all over the world. We have that in the Olympics, but that's competition. This is collaboration.
Right.
In things that give us joy, that make us feel good, stimulating each other's ideas, and when people are feeling joyful and are being creative, they're peaceful, they're harmonious, and this would be televised, and people could watch it and send in whatever little donation they could make, or large donation, and everybody would have access to experiencing it.
Right.
And this could be many of them
Right.
all over different parts of the world.
Right.
Collaborative.
Right, in a peaceful way.
Yes.
Next, Alex, Simonian.
To collaborate everyone over the world, what have you thought of to do to bring everyone together so far?
What have I done?
Or, no, what have you thought of to do
Yes.
to bring everyone together?
Right, okay, I will bring to that. First, I'd like to hear more comments, if I may. Anybody else? Linda Groff, Professor Linda Groff, Reverend Professor Linda Groff. Could you stand up and speak loudly, please, Linda?
Well, we've all been involved with I've been involved with a lot of intercultural communication and interfaith dialogue as ways to create more understanding between people. And we also have this book project that Simon is part of, where we have a peace hub, which is also related here to Leland. And we have 12 sectors around the peace hub of different sectors of the community to bring them together to share what they're doing on different positive projects in the community. And now we're creating a book where we're getting people writing on each of these sectors about what they're doing.
What are some of the sectors?
Oh my goodness, let's see.
Sorry.
No, we have a whole, well, let's see, we have, let's help me here. We have inner peace and spiritual awareness is one. We have intercultural, interfaith dialogue and peace. We have
Education.
Education, peace education.
Music and the arts,
Music and the arts. We have 12 sectors. Come on.
government, justice,
Yeah, no war.
economics,
Building peace.
every aspect of a society.
We had quite a discussion to get this wheel together at the beginning. Like, what are the most important 12 sectors we were going to look at?
Do you have an icon for it or a symbol?
Yes.
Yeah, we could, if you're interested, I could send a copy to anybody. I don't have it here, but I could send it.
Reverend Leland Stewart, comments from you, please. And speak again loud, so we can all hear you. Your wisdom.
I'm very much involved in this book that we're talking about, and I also was involved in the creation of the wheel, and so we're enjoying working together. This project's been going on for quite a while. We hope to have the book done sometime this year, and so we would be interested in hearing from any of you who are wanting to know what's going on and perhaps how to participate. Thank you.
Leland, you should tell them about Unity and Diversity World Council, what the purpose is.
Okay. There is a nonprofit corporation that this is part of that's called Unity and Diversity World Council. And it's started in Los Angeles, but it reaches out worldwide. And some of the people, like Stephen, goes to Israel. He's got a project called
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem Prayer.
Jerusalem Prayer Project. And Linda's traveling most of the time in the summer. And so we have an extension of the work. And so we're very much involved in seeing that this reaches as many people as possible. Thank you.
All right. Shahik Bastia, who is a technology expert in the Los Angeles Transportation Department.
Thank you. Definitely collaboration is the key, and I was thinking in order to get everyone into the collaboration, we have to elevate the human consciousness level. And with lower level of consciousness, collaboration might turn to competition and fighting over common resources, but in a higher level of collaboration, definitely everyone can be involved. And what I was thinking is to elevate human consciousness, maybe we can teach wisdom in schools, because our educational system is just teaching us skills. The wisdom is really missing in the system. We end up gaining wisdom as life goes on, but if we start from kids, it might help.
Yes, Taylor Simonian.
So, for
So
our,
she is, Taylor is sophomore at UCLA and is related to me.
Okay, so right now our society has shifted from a more like Gemeinschaft society to a more Gesellschaft society, so we have more independent values, whereas in a Gemeinschaft society there's more interdependence. So we've shifted to this kind of society where everyone is kind of like out for themselves and doing things for themselves. So do you think it might be better if we went back and reverted to a more interdependent society in a certain way so that we could be more collaborative?
Thank you, Taylor.
What was that word you used?
Yeah, the first
Yeah, what's the word you
What's
use?
the
German.
Could you slowly say the word again?
Oh, so like a Gemeinschaft society, so you would
So
think,
spell the Gemeinschaft.
I don't know if I'm spell this correctly, but like,
ESELL.
like the Gemeinschaft is, so yeah, they're German words, but yeah, I'm learning this in my culture and development class at UCLA right now actually, but it's very interesting. Like you would think of a Gemeinschaft society as one that might be kind of more like things that you think of like more back in the day. Like if you look at societies in Mexico where they're doing like weaving, and it's more like when people are working together, like the families are living together and they're placing emphasis on that. There's less technology, people are helping each other out, and that's kind of a more Gemeinschaft society. And then when you switch and have more technology and innovation, that becomes a more Gesellschaft society. And people like focus on themselves.
Thank you, Taylor. Did you have a comment to make, Chrissy?
No, I was going to say that I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves in that we're talking about a means to an end, but
Yeah.
what I wanted to do was hear
About
how
what
you
I-
got here.
Just before that, let me
Okay.
answer some of these
All right.
comments, if I may, and bring them together.
Thank you.
One of the best examples of what I'm talking about is the European Union. The European Union is made up of 28 different countries in Europe, made up of 500 million people, larger than we are, with a GDP larger than ours. We are 320 million, they are 500. We are, 50 states. We did fight in 1860s and 65, civil war. There was competition. But then when we came together, there's more collaboration. We would like it to be even better than it is now. And the European Union came together in 1945 after the Second World War because they had been fighting each other as sovereign states. Sovereign states were established in 1645 after Westphalia, where there was war. Each country then decided to have borders and be able to do what they want freely, independently in their own countries. And unfortunately, many of the governments began to be unjust to their own citizens. So even that didn't work, and they began to fight with each other since 1648 until the Second World War. At the end of that, the Europeans were fed up of this killing, competition, and so on. They came together as a union. Since 1945, they have not fought with each other, these 28 countries. First time there's been collaborative justice, peace. There are problems, of course. They haven't solved all the problems, but they are solving them year by year and this refugee problem, they didn't create it. They didn't create the refugee, it was somebody else that created it. And they have to, unfortunately, are dealing with a problem they didn't create, and it's giving them a major problem. And that's why Brexit, the United Kingdom, is exiting, except Scotland wants to stay in, and Ireland wants to stay in. Just the English and the Welsh want to separate. Now, the European Union, what they did was this very important thing. Instead of sovereign states doing what they want, like individuals, supposing in the driving, individuals decided to drive like they want. Sovereign, they are independent, free country, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So he wants to drive the opposite way, It wouldn't work. So they had a super sovereign legislation, like the laws of driving, super sovereign, super independent individual. And they had a super sovereign legislature, they had a judicial system and an executive system, and the military to enforce the laws applied to all the 28 states equally. Free borders, no more passports, same currency gradually, In a period of 45 till 2017, they have made great advances in the history of the world, and this is the biggest experiment of success. Now, similar other groups have begun to copy this and have come together. There's an African Union in its stages developing. There's an Asian Union. there's an American, South American Union developing. So it's not just the European Union. So things are getting ripe for someone in this room maybe who could bring the world into a world union. These 28 countries are only 28 out of 195. So the other 160 still need to come together. And these need to come together, and then we have a world union with a super sovereign legislation, and the executive branch and judicial branch with enforceable military that is keeping peace and enforcing the laws, and it'll be like driving, it'll be like the 50 trillion cells, it'll be like the musicians playing, there'll be justice, needs are met, there are jobs, there's enough food, abundance, sharing, working to help each other. The golden rule, loving each other, helping each other, solve each other's problem. So this is possible. And I'm interested in creating that. I've got some pieces of paper for name, email, contact information of people who are interested in working with me in the future on this problem. Before you leave, you could maybe fill that up with your contact information. Now coming to the sad story of what I have done. What I've done obviously is not enough to solve this problem. So we have to do more. There's much more important problem. I'm of Armenian background, and the Armenian people came from the Caucasus, where Mount Ararat is, where Noah's Ark stood. At the beginning, when we started about Ethiopia, just north of the equator in Africa, 100,000 to 150,000 years ago, migrated up north, and then they seemed to like that area of the Armenian highlands, where there was fresh water of two rivers, Tigris, Euphrates. And when there was fresh water, they were tired of hunting and gathering like animals do. And when the produce decreased, there was nothing to hunt, they had to move to another place. So there was no dwelling, nothing. But then planting started of grains and things, and they saw that these grains would grow, so they could settle down and harvest the grain, build their homes, and their schools and their institutions and so on and so forth. And so the beginnings of human civilization is said by recent excavations, 6,000 years old, over there, with a wine press 6,000 years old, with shoes made of leather 6,000 years old. And we are the descendants of our pre-ancestors called Hittites and Sumerians and Urartians, and Armenians appeared 700 BC. So that we are more than 6,000 years old in bringing the first human civilization in the banks of fresh river. And from there, this culture and civilization migrated south to Iraq, Iran, and Israel, and pharaohs, and west to Rome and Greece, and the rest right to Ireland and England, and then east to Persia, Iran, and India, and China, and then north to Russia and so on. So that's the kind of world I come in. In addition, the Armenians were the first nation to adopt Christianity as their national religion in 301 AD. 11 years or 10 years before Rome, Constantine declared Christianity in Rome. And we were converted by some of the disciples, actual disciples of Jesus. Two of them, called Thaddeus and Bartholomew, came to Armenia and began to convert after Jesus' death. People there, individuals, were converted. Eventually, the king's sister and the king's chancellor of the exchequer, the treasurer, were converted. At that time, the king was pagan. When he heard his sister, that the chancellor was converted, he put him to a dungeon because punishment was death for non-pagans, as troublemaker Christians. Put him in the den so he could starve to death. But his sister secretly fed this man. And then one day, when the king was having psychological troubles because of the guilt of imprisoning his best friend, his sister said, "Look, I can have you cured if I could bring from the dungeon this friend of yours to pray over you, and you become a Christian." And he did. He became a Christian, declared Christianity throughout the land. So we've been the oldest Christians. As a result, neighbors who have not been Christians, like we see in the Middle East today, have been suffering. And we had a genocide in 1915, among many, many massacres. when the Turks came to that West Armenia area about 500 years ago. We were there much before then. They then tried to take our lands, our lives, and schools, churches, everything. And they did it in 1915 when my parents their families were decimated, killed, except my mother at 6 was orphaned, my father at 9 was orphaned. And somehow Quakers saved my mother, and a Greek Christian family saved my father. They grew up eventually in the Middle East, Syria, and that area outside of Turkey, Western Armenia, and eventually married in Beirut, Lebanon, and then moved to Antioch in Syria, where I was born in 1932. And there we moved when that Antioch was given back to Turkey by the Allies in 1939. We moved 1 year before that in 1938 to Beirut, Lebanon, because my mother had studied to become a teacher and a nurse and a head nurse in Lebanon, in Beirut, at the American University of Beirut, Lebanon, which was an American institution established in 1866 by Protestant missionaries, and it's still going very strong in the Middle East. So I then emigrated at age 5 to Beirut, Lebanon, and then went to elementary school, high school, Quaker school, and then from there I immigrated by myself to England to study my medical studies, because the Quaker school I was in was a British Quaker school, and I did my MD at the University of London in 1957. I did my surgical training 5 years, 1962 FRCS, Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh, and meantime I was teaching as well as studying surgery as a professional, teaching medical students in Edinburgh in anatomy and surgery. And then I decided that I wanted to specialize in something. First I thought of neurosurgery, and then I realized I wanted to see if neurosurgery science was advanced enough in 1962. When I went to Oxford University to check and become a student there, a senior student, I found that it wasn't really advanced enough for neurosurgery to use that basic science. But instead there was another specialty which had arisen, kidney transplantation in Boston. In Boston, I was in Edinburgh, from Syria, Lebanon, going to London and Edinburgh. Imagine me, I heard Boston at Harvard Medical School, kidney transplant had been done between identical twins by Joseph Murray, Professor Joseph Murray, born in America, of course, professor at Harvard Medical School, and he did identical twins. One twin had 2 kidneys not working, the other twin had 2 kidneys working. By taking 1 kidney from the healthy, put it in the unhealthy, the kidney started making urine in the operating room, so he was away from dialysis, he was able to live, survive normally. So it showed that technically you could do a kidney transplant, Joseph Murray. But when it came to unrelated donors, like cadavers, brain-dead patients whose kidneys are harvested to donate to people who don't have kidney function and are on dialysis, the kidneys were rejected by the immune. The body thought it was a germ and would therefore immunely try to kill it, just like they try to kill a cancer cell. Very few cancer cells emerge, because most of the time any cancerous cell at the beginning is killed by these 50 trillion cells by the immune responses. And if a few aggressive ones break through. Let me see now. So like the cancer cell, okay. So the kidney is therefore rejected, being thought by the body it's a foreign thing. So then it was decided to suppress the immune response in kidney recipients in order that the kidney would be accepted and function. So first they gave one drug called azathioprine. Survival was improved a little bit from 0. They gave 2 drugs, azathioprine and prednisolone, by 1968. There was 50% survival at 1 year, but the 50% was still rejected. At that time, what had happened was, in my education, I had moved to the United States, married my wife in 1965, because my parents were there. I went from Oxford for a vacation. My sister, one of them, introduced my potential wife, future wife, a classmate of hers, and we got married a year later. I had to get to know each other for a year, so I got a job at the American University, a double job at biochemistry and surgery to do research, and then we married in 1965. I said, let's have one priest, your priest or my priest, to marry us. But her father was the director of the seminary, priest director, the dean of seminary. When they heard the professor's daughter getting married, they said, we are going to be there. So on the altar, we had 8 people marry us. The Archbishop of Lebanon with his 2 assistant priests, the Bishop of Lebanon with his 2 assistant priests, that's 6, then her priest, my priest 8, and then the Catholicos, who was on vacation in July 11, came from vacation to also bless us in his throne room. So we really had a firm marriage 51 years ago. And in July 11 this year, it will be 52. You see the firm tie they tied on us? So at Harvard in 1965, I was involved with a project called immunology. There were 2 groups of white rats. One group was getting a normal diet, being injected with an antigen to which the rats made antibody, okay? And with a good diet, they made a lot of antibody we could measure in the laboratory at Harvard Medical School Department of Pathology in Boston. Another group of 12 rats had a diet deficient in protein or a certain vitamin, and they made less antibody as expected, showing that good diet is important for survival and an immune response to protect yourself against germs and things like that. And as you know, this is, you know very well, that not everybody lives when there's a big serious infection. Most people live because they have a good immune response. Some of them don't, either from a diet or from some other reason, like a genetic defect. And I'm going to come to that also in the next story. So I was recruited, and for 6 months before I came, the control rats eating normal diet stopped making antibody. And the 5 Harvard staff and faculty couldn't figure out why. It was a mystery. How come the normal rats that were making antibody for the last 2 years suddenly stopped making antibody? So I recruited them, started checking to see the methodology, the measurement system, the antigen system. Everything I checked in a 6-month period was normal, perfect. The only thing that was a question in my mind was the rats. Were the rats different from the ones they were using 6 months before? So I called the lab, the Charles Breeding Laboratories, and said, are these rats the same you've been sending us the last 6 months like you did before? They said, yes, they are the same. The only difference is that 6 months ago we used to send the rats from building A, and now we are beginning, the last 6 months they have been sending rats from building B, but the parents are the same. I said, okay, send us some from building A like you did. As soon as they came, we injected, they made antibody. So clearly these rats of the last 6 months were different. And we figured it was different genetically. Genetically different. To prove it, we married the non-responder rats with the responder rats. And the baby made antibody, showing it was a dominant gene that passed to the first filial generation. And it was a genetic defect in those that didn't make it. And since then, we discovered a new medical science field called immunogenetics from immunology of the rat. Now, thousands of scientists work full-time in immunogenetics of the rat to diagnose human disease, autoimmune diseases, genetic diseases, to save millions of human lives. Now, before Harvard, let me go back to London when I was getting my MD degree. After I did my pre-medical studies, I was recruited by Douglas MacLean, who was director of the vaccine lab at Lister Institute of Preventive Medicine in University of London. Lister was a Quaker like I am. He was a professor of surgery. He graduated from University College London where I graduated. And he was before me by several generations. And that lab was honored because of his name. He was made Lord Lister because in operating rooms there was a lot of infection in the old days. He created the carbonic acid spray in the operating room to reduce infections by 50%. So he was honored by Louis Pasteur in France, the great medical scientist with a PhD, as well as the country himself by the king into Lord Lister. And so he was a very honored surgeon and chairman of the department, both in Edinburgh. He went from London to Edinburgh and came back to London King's College. So there I was recruited with another person, Leslie Collier. And the two of us began working on an idea. Smallpox was a disease that was killing 3 people a minute, 5,000 people a day, and 2 million people a year. year after year for 3,000 years, since 1157 BCE, when Ramses V, the pharaoh, was discovered in the mummy to have died of smallpox pustules. So this is 1951, 52 now, 50. And about 150 years before that, in England, there was a doctor called Edward Jenner, like the Jenner family here, the Kardashian Jenner. You know? Kardashian is always Armenian. And so Edward Jenner noticed that milkmaids who were milking cows to obtain milk, whoever got pustules on their hands from the cowpox, the cows get an infection called cowpox from a virus. But they didn't know it was a virus then in 1796. Those people never got smallpox. These milkmaids were immune to smallpox. So farmers figured that somehow the milkmaids were immune from this cowpox to smallpox. And therefore there was a relationship between smallpox and cowpox. Now Edward Jenner was a bit reluctant to do an experiment. But his mentor, who was John Hunter, a Scot who was working with this William Scott in London, who had immigrated from Edinburgh to come and work in London because of better resources, Hunter told Edward Jenner, stop talking, do the experiment. Like, stop preaching, practicing. And that's what I want. That's what I've tried to do myself in my life, if I can. So we've got to stop preaching, or after preaching, we've got to practice our preaching, whether it's the Golden Rule, or a world union, or a collaboration. We have to practice, and we have to believe that we can do it. And remember, some people, like the famous Steve Jobs of the Apple, have had the belief that, you know, death is coming. Maybe it's the last day of my life, because we don't know when we are going to die. We don't know when we are going to be born. So he worked really at what he loved. And he said, don't settle for less. Do what you love, don't settle for less. Believe it's the last day of your life. Believe you can do it, and you will be able to achieve it. The need you have, the love you have to achieve it. So, for 150 years, the vaccine of smallpox from cowpox was used by Edward Jenner. In order to do the experiment, he got his gardener's son. He said, he persuaded the gardener, look, I'm going to put some cowpox on your son's skin. And then I'm going to inoculate him with real smallpox, and you'll see that he will be immune to it and he won't die. Somehow the gardener said, okay, boss. That was a grateful experiment. So indeed, 3 weeks after he inoculated him with cowpox, this Phipps, his name, the boy, was inoculated with smallpox, he survived. So Edward Jenner had the courage to inoculate his son with cowpox and do the same with smallpox. And he got another 20 volunteers, which he tested. All of them were immune. And he wrote a paper to the Royal Society of London. And then the whole world knew that this was the beginning of an immunology experiment. And people were saved from smallpox in those countries in the West, like Britain, United States, Europe, that had the means to produce this material. The problem with this small cowpox was that it was active in only 1 day. Second day, it was inactive. So it couldn't be transported to Sahara, to poor countries. And therefore, still in 1950, from 1796 till 1950, there were still 3 deaths a minute, 5,000 deaths a day, 2 million deaths a year, forever. So it was time for us to do something. When we figured that if we could maybe freeze dry the cowpox, freeze dry it in a centrifuge with minus 70-degree nitrogen, and get it. The freeze drying removes the water from the virus and any substance, and prevents bacteria coming to infect it and kill it. And it's therefore active. And our vaccine, after many trials and tribulations, because we had to vaccinate the flank of sheep, we used sheep pox, which is also active against smallpox. We had to do the flank, first put sheep pox there, then harvest it when the sheep pox multiplied, and then remove the bacteria from it, purify it, then freeze-dry it. Sometimes we had to kill the bacteria, sometimes we killed the virus. We tried, and this Peptone here, and things like that, and eventually we found the right solution and got the vaccine that worked and tested it on some military personnel. It worked, and then we announced it to the world, and then the World Health Organization in Geneva decided to have a smallpox eradication program, because this was active for 60 weeks, not one day. 60 weeks it was active, and you could reconstitute it from the shelf at high temperatures. It was still active 60 weeks later, more than a year later. So it was transported. There were 30 countries that had eradicated smallpox in the West, but the other 160 countries of the 195 still had smallpox. And all of them had the vaccine. And in a 10-year period, like going to the moon successfully, between 67 and 77, everybody was vaccinated again and again and again, and all the outbreaks were eliminated. The last case of smallpox was in Africa, in Somalia, East Africa, with a cook who had been vaccinated, a young man who survived. And then since 77, no deaths from smallpox. 3 people saved every minute, 5,000 lives saved every day, 2 million lives saved every year, and forever. And till now, 40 years later, we have saved already 80 million lives from this one. Now, so back to Harvard, Boston. So we found that a new field of immunogenetics, and now thousands of scientists work in it to help other millions of patients to do a better thing with their lives. Now, the next thing was that I was interested in kidney transplantation. And the kidney transplant doctor, Joseph Murray, happened to be next door in the Department of Surgery. And I had been working in the Department of Pathology and discovered this field of immunogenetics. And then Harvard decided to give me an award, a Doctor of Science degree, first surgeon to receive a Doctor of Science degree from Harvard University School of Public Health, established since 1913. So Joseph Murray heard that I was a young surgeon from England and Scotland who had come, discovered a new field of immunogenetics, and he got a Doctor of Science degree at Harvard, and he said, "This is the man I want to work with me." He called me, he said, "Simon, I'd be so grateful if you would work with me. A dream I had in Edinburgh in 1962, this was 1968, 6 years later, and I predicted one day that would happen, and that happened." I said, "How can I compete with the Harvard doctors working, want to do kidney transplant as a new specialty as surgeons, young surgeons? How can I?" I said, "I'd devise a way where he would call me," and he did. And this is him. And this is him next to me, Joseph Murray. And guess what happened after we worked together? He got a Nobel Prize, being the first American-born surgeon to get a Nobel Medicine Prize in the history of American surgery in 1990 from 1776.
For what?
Now I'm going to tell you. Very good question. He called me, "Simon," he said, "look, we have 2 immunosuppressive agents being given to unrelated kidney transplant recipients, azathioprine and prednisone, and there's only 50% survival of these kidneys in 1 year. Please, with your knowledge, you could do something about this." I said, "Okay." So I was appointed Director of Immunology at Harvard Medical School, Peter Bent Brigham Hospital, and in the lab, with my assistants, we created a 3rd immunosuppressive agent called IgG immunoglobulin, which was hitting the lymphocytes of the recipient that were rejecting the kidney that they had received from an unrelated donor. These are the lymphocyte immune cells that go and attack the kidney to kill it. So we created an antibody against the lymphocytes so that they be weakened and accept the kidney in the recipient. And when we did the trial in animals, dogs, we did this. We transplanted kidneys from unrelated dogs to dogs. And then we gave one group of 12 the 2 drugs standard. And the other one, we gave the 2 drugs plus the new one, IgG immunoglobulin. These 2 had 50% of their kidneys survive 1 year. These 3 had 100% of their kidneys survive 1 year. So this was fantastic news. And then Upjohn in Kalamazoo, Michigan, the pharmaceutical company, made it for the human use, the IgG immunoglobulin. And I was asked to do one of the first clinical trials in humans. And we gave the two to a true 12 randomly selected, prospectively randomized patients with 50% survival at 1 year, with 100% survival at 1 year. This was in 1982, later on when I became professor of surgery and director of transplantation in Philadelphia, Hahnemann University. And 8 years later, after 82, 1990, Joe Body got a Nobel Medicine Prize. And because I'd helped him to get that prize, we have a joint prize at Harvard now, which is called the Joseph Murray Simonian Prize in Research Excellence in Surgery, which is given to 4 people each year. 2 mentees who do top research at Harvard, and 2 mentors who help them do the research. Again, honoring the mentors, obeying the golden rule. This was another introduction I did in prize winning, to honor the teacher, to honor the creator, to honor the parent, as well as the student, rather than the conventional method. Oh, the student got a prize. Forget the teacher, forget the parent. They had nothing to do with it. But in truth, they had a lot to do with it to inspire the student. So now at Harvard, both teachers and students are equally respected, and their names are engraved after the headshots of Joseph Murray and myself in the library of Harvard Medical School Department of Surgery. So this was another thing that I was lucky enough to be involved with. Again, it was all based on collaboration. It was one purpose, you notice. In each case, whether it was the smallpox vaccine, or whether it was the immunogenetics discovery, or whether it was the creation of these immunosuppressive agents, a group of people had one purpose, working together, not competing, not destroying each other, enhancing each other, enabling each other, empowering each other to have the needs be met, fulfilled, achieved. And then what happens? Harmony, peace, just like the examples I gave, whether it's the body, it's the hand, the face, or the musicians playing, or people driving. Now, after this, guess what happened? I was asked to do a surgical residency in the United States all over again that I'd done in England and Edinburgh, Scotland. 5 years. They said, okay, we'll give you 1 year credit. But it's usually 5 years, you have to do it in 4 years. So 74, I did a residency again. But the hours were grueling. 123-hour week I had to work in the hospital. 100, not 40 hours, not 80 double, but 123 times? No, 123, more than 3 times the standard of 40. No 9 to 5. So my sons, 3 of them, at that time we had 2, suffered by not seeing their father very much. What we would do though, we would have Arpi, my wife, with my 2 sons at a rest stop. Driving at a rest stop. They would be there, and I would drive to the rest stop, see them 5 minutes, hug them, kiss them, and then I had to drive back to the hospital. And this 123 hours, unfortunately, wasn't enough salary to maintain our new house in Newton, in Boston, and our 2 children, and their, survival needs. The salary with the residency that I did again in America. So I had to get a second job to have an augmentation of my salary for our mortgage, etc. So not only 123 hours, I got 2 nights a week at the emergency room physician in Haverhill Hospital. And I would drive 1 hour from Boston City Hospital to Haverhill Hospital, and then on the way I would see them 5 minutes because I was never at home. I was working for 147 hours a week for 2 years. So this is the kind of thing that one does if one loves something. It's like a mother who works 168 hours a week with a child. Right? Exactly. So we have to honor our mothers. That's why Mother's Day is so important. And they bear the pregnancy, they bear the birth, they bear the nurturing. It all depends on the mothers. And that's why mothers and fathers, men and women, are equal. And all colors are equal, because they are a variety of the beauty of humanity. Why are there blacks? Well, when they migrated from Africa, Ethiopia, ultraviolet is very powerful there in the equator. And if you don't have a dark skin, cancer will kill a person. But as it came out, the ultraviolet light became less and less strong as we went north. So it wasn't necessary to have so much melanin and black, so skin became whiter. But they are the same pattern, the same genes, same variety, the same family, the same species, Homo sapiens. So we have to honor that, go back, to the truth and practice it and not violate it. And instead of competition, as I said, where there are winners and losers, and the losers are angry, anxious, depressed, etc., the winners all together for a common purpose, working happy always, flourishing and all that kind of thing. Now, what did I do next? So after this 4 years, yes, ma'am.
I probably have you to thank for my stepdaughter. She had 2 kidney transplants in the last 30 years. One lasted 27 years. One lasted, the last one she had was 100% match. They almost fell over. She watched them clean it up and put it in, and I have you to thank for my stepdaughter's immunity she's had 2 kidneys. She's now 62 years old. She's a transportation lawyer in San Francisco, and she's amazing.
God bless. God bless. God bless. Well, that's the practicing of the golden rule and collaboration. And we want the whole world to be like that, like heaven on earth. I hope we have created a heaven on earth in this room during the past hour by talking and enjoying this kind of future world that we are going to collaboratively build together in a collective way. Now, let me see in the last minute or so. After that, I decided to have a position. I was recruited by the University of Chicago. That Chrissy lives in Chicago. University of Chicago is a top university. Yeah, that's
30
right.
seconds.
That's right. And she is born there.
And
And
I was learning to drive, and he's saving the planet, okay?
and,
All right?
so,
Know what I'm saying?
yes, thank you. And if I may go beyond that for a minute or two, I would appreciate it. And I was recruited. The University of Chicago was built by the Rockefeller oil family, John D. Rockefeller. It's a top university. It's called the Harvard of the Midwest. And there I was asked, I was a member of the faculty of the Department of Surgery as well as the Immunology Department because of my expertise in both, and kidney transplant, especially in surgery, as well as cancer work in surgery. And then I was asked to head a team of 10 scientists to create a bond, a covalent bond chemically between a protein and a cell-killing agent. For example, if we made an antibody to a cancer cell, it would go to the cancer cell but avoid normal cells. But that antibody is not strong enough to kill the cancer cell by itself. So we have to put a little bomb, a little, like an airplane with a bomb, to go to the target and, kill the enemy, as it were. And as our cancer cells are sometimes virulent and we can't defend it with our immune system, and they begin to spread, and then the patient dies. So we figured if we could create an antibody and attach chemically bonding the bomb, and the bomb should not separate and go on the journey, to normal cells. And we were able to chemically bond this and publish the results in a 3-year period. So we started immunotherapy. Instead of chemotherapy that kills all cells, bone marrow cells, it kills everything, this is a specifically targeting cancer cells. So I was involved also with the creation of immunotherapy as a normal medical specialty. Now it's saving millions of lives since 1977, when we completed the work in a 3-year period. After that, I decided that it was time to I did a lot of transplants at Hahnemann, more than 300 personal kidney transplants myself, as well as doing the harvesting of kidneys from cadaver, brain-dead patients, for use by 2 different recipients with their 2 kidneys. I did 500 double kidney harvests and 300 kidney transplants when I was at Hahnemann for 10 years, among other surgeries that I did. Altogether, I've done at least 30,000 operations in the operating room personally with my hands, and I've taken care of more than 50,000 patients, and I've injected sclerotherapy injection to 500,000 injections in my career. Now, the next thing I wanted to tackle was I'm always looking for problems that I can help to solve, a need that needs to be achieved or fulfilled. And the next need that called to me was venous vascular disease. Varicose veins, deep vein thrombosis. There are 40 million people in the United States with that, and about 800 million in the world that are suffering from this. And in the United States, 300,000 were dying of deep vein thrombosis going to the lung, from the clots from the deep veins, because of sitting in an aeroplane, or sitting, being asleep for too long, or being drunk, not knowing what they are doing. So, in order to help with this disease, I entered the field of a venous vascular disease called phlebology in 1990. And we formed the Vein Institute in the greater Washington area in Fairfax County, which is at that time the most affluent county it happened to be in the United States. And there the Vein Institute happened to be the oldest in the nation. And in 16 years, till 2006, from 1990, we developed it into this kind of an institution with a lot of innovations. In 1990, venous vascular disease, to treat the varicose veins of a patient, they entered hospital with a machine inserted from the ankle and threaded into this diseased vein to the groin. It was pulled out, and a lot of bleeding and pain and bruising. Patient was in the hospital 5 days and had to be off 2 weeks from work in order to recover. What we did by the year 2006, the difference was miraculous. Again, by collaborative work with other people in the venous vascular disease. Namely, the patient would come to the office, not the hospital anymore, for their operation. The patient would be told to close her eyes. Usually, more often it's a woman, but men also. Close her eyes on the bed in an operating room setting, sterile. And will be told that when the operation is completed in 1 hour, they will be asked to open their eyes and wake up. With this kind of trust, under a tiny needle, local anesthesia in the inner part of the thigh, above the knee, like a little pinch, you hardly feel it. Local anesthesia would be put in. After the pinch, there would be no other pain. With that pinch, a bigger needle would be inserted, and the local would be increased over the vein to the groin, and with a lot of local anesthetic, tumescent kind. Very, very, very dilute, but very, very effective. Then with a laser ultrasound, with a machine in front of me, with a machine, I would be able to track the vein here and make a hole large enough to put a laser fiber into the vein, right up to the groin, under ultrasound guidance. And then heat the laser fiber to heat the vein closed, without pain. And then pull the laser fiber out, put a Band-Aid at the hole we made, Band-Aid. And then ask them to put their compression stocking up. Have your key back, drive yourself back home, back to work. So that was the miraculous transformation in phlebology that we helped to develop. And then our also was the largest in the country with participation with insurance. And we donated it as a gift to Georgetown University Hospital. It was the largest gift in the history of Georgetown University Hospital they got. So that's the kind of philanthropy we also did. And by the way, all this work that I've been participating in collaboratively has been done voluntarily, philanthropically. No patents, no charge, no getting royalties, as it should be. Like parents don't charge their children. Mothers don't charge their children after birth. Look, I birthed you, baby. It's love. It's love because they know their children will come back to the world and to them later. So, and then the next thing was venous lymphatic vascular disease is another disease that caused 2 million people to suffer in the United States and about 40 million in the world. And the lymphatics get diseased, the valves don't work, the legs swell or the arms swell, they have difficulty walking and so on, performing their tasks, and they die younger. And this disease also we advanced in terms that they were only being treated by massage therapists. No doctors would touch them, they didn't know how to do with it. But we helped to get doctors to begin to treat these lymphatic vascular disease, lymphology patients. I was appointed the first president, physician president of the American Society of Lymphology for 6 years and brought in many conferences, doctors to teach them how to take care of these patients. And so lymphology became a normal medical specialty in the United States with doctors taking care of these patients. And we co-wrote the first textbook of lymphology in the United States as well in 2007. So these are some of the works we did. After I retired in 2006, I've been in this field of trying to get a world union together. And I thank you very much for coming and listening, and I want you to now help me with more questions and comments for the remainder of the 20 minutes we have. Yes?
How did you come here to UCLA?
How did I come here, UCLA? That's a good question. We have 3 married sons. We married in 1965, and our first son was born in 68, our second in 71. First, Leonard, he is there in that room on the left, with his daughter, Taylor, who is a UCLA sophomore. And Leonard is a managing director of an investment bank in Santa Monica, with a JD from Harvard Law School, a lawyer, and with a BS from the Wharton School, the school that Donald Trump went to in University of Pennsylvania. In addition, he has a BA in Arts and Sciences from the University of Pennsylvania. In addition to his BS in Wharton, Arts and Sciences, a BA, both summa cum laude. So that's his brilliant son, Len.
I'd like to clarify that President Trump never graduated from I believe that to be true.
Well, you see, it makes a difference. And so our second son, Charles, was born. He is an investment hedge fund owner in Manhattan, which he controls with his wife. He lives there with his wife and 3 children, boy and 2 girls. And Andrew, here taking the video, is our third son, born in 1975. And he has his 2 children, Alex and Ashley. Alex, 11, just graduated elementary school, Thomas Dye School, going to Brentwood Middle School next, later this year. And Ashley is 3rd grade, 9-year-old. Now, it happens that Andrew chose to live in California, and so did Len, with his wife and 3 children, live in California. We were on the East Coast. After 2006, I retired. We thought we should really come here to be with our grandchildren and children. So that's why we live in Pacific Palisades, roughly in the middle, and in Malibu is Len, and with his wife Christy, and Christy is a graduate of Pepperdine University, and then we have Andrew, who lives now in Brentwood with his wife Nicole, who is a JD as well as a BA, Phi Beta Kappa from UCLA, and she's a JD lawyer, international partner consultant of Asia in her firm, Brian Cave. So that's why we came, to be close to them. And,
What is Andrew?
And Andrew is a graduate of Wharton also. He's so smart that instead of 4 years, he graduated in 3 years and decided to come to Los Angeles, where entertainment center of the world, and he is in the field of entertainment. And he's been a TV executive co-producer. So that's why I came with my wife of 51 years, and we'll be 52 July 11th this year. Remember the good tie we had from that altar. You know, 8 on the altar and 1 waiting outside to be sure the tie is firm enough. Now, go ahead, please. How can I help you further, and what other comments can we have about a new world? Yes, some of the comments. I hope that's what I've been trying to do since 2006. How to, my colleagues here, Reverend Linda Groff, professor, and Reverend Leland Stewart, and there's Stephen Longfellow Fisk, and then we have another lady, Doris Davis, who is taken a break from editing just now for a while. And we've been working on this Cultures of Peace that they've been doing before I came here, and I've joined them, and I'm very grateful for their expertise and their professionalism in order to make everything better than I could have done by myself. By collaborating together, everybody is enriched, including me. So that's what we have been doing. Also, I'm a minister in the Quaker school, in the Quaker religion. There's a Quaker religion, as you know, since 1647. George Fox developed it in England. He broke away from the Anglican Church, which was more Catholic-oriented, and he broke away, became more Protestant with Martin Luther of Germany, making Protestantism spread to England as well. And they look at equality of the genders very much. They look at equality of people also very much, rather than hierarchy, like bishops, archbishop, etc. caste system in India. No, everybody is equal, and there's unity working together. There's justice when we work together to help meet our needs. There is also simplicity, as like the body looks very simple inside with these 50 trillion cells because they are so collaborative, so harmonious. And then we believe in also peace and community, this collaborative collective, and equanimity, things like that. And we believe also not only preaching it, but practicing it. And that's very, of course, crucially important. You don't just talk, you walk your talk, and practice your preaching. And that's very important. The other things I did mention, you all know about, is that in order to have this world union, people have to be morally right, not wrong. Morally right, they have to be ethically good, not bad, evil, you know, all these principles there. They have to be mentally healthy. That means tell the truth, not lie. Be real, not talk fiction. Okay? And then we have to do also needs that are basic, common needs. We have to work together to solve them, to achieve them. So everybody is happy then. There's peace, harmony. That's how you create, like we hope this creates in this room, the heaven on earth. Did we create a little bit of heaven on earth?
Definitely. I agree. I just have to leave, but I feel a sense of community and collaboration. Thank you.
What's your name?
Amy.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
We
having
appreciate
me.
your coming. We value your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Alex, did you have some other questions?
Like I asked earlier,
Yes.
do you have any plans for how you're gonna unite everyone?
Well, I want to work on creating laws, sovereign laws, which I'm writing. You know, people then legislate with that, and then have a judicial system and also a military system to enforce the laws, as well as the legislative, the judicial, and the also, what's the third one?
Executive.
Executive, yes, the executive one. But we also have to be careful not to create politicians like today, because these politicians, as you know, don't respect morality, don't respect ethics, you know, goodness or morality, rightness. They don't respect mental health, etc. as good, you know, truth, etc. We have to ask them to respect all these principles. And in order to be elected for a short term, they have to be tested. They have to be gone through a testing, a vetting system, like when you admit a student to a school. You know, you don't just, you know, elect them because they spend a lot of money. You test them to see if they are, you know, they have the capacity to get to that grade, to get that education. And you test them after education to see if they are, you know, worthy of the diploma. So we have to test our legislators, we have to test our executive branch people, and give them a short term to do a job. If they don't do the job by collaborative action and solve needs of the people, then they have to be recalled. And another person, more expert, has to take that place. Thank you very much. Exactly. So it's not this old system. Our system of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, you know, it was written in 1776, thereabouts. Now it's 241 years later. We have to improve on the past. We can't walk on a camel or a donkey that they may have used then, or a horse. We are using all kinds of speedy things now, right? And we have to change these things and make our constitution for the future world, not the past, warring all the time, inadequate, you know, immoral, unethical, all this kind of thing. So we have to keep improving, evolving, as they say. And one of the experts in evolution is Linda Groff, has been writing about that kind of thing, like the Charles Darwin. But it's not just the fittest survive, no. It's evolving, adapting to change, making the change and adapting, embracing the change that we make. Okay? And you have to be prepared, and you have to be also, the last day of your life, you have to really believe in it, that you can do it together and persuade each other to do it in a loving way. There's joy all the time. It's a joy. I work once or 47 hours a week for my family and for my people that I'm helping as my patients with joy. It wasn't hard like mothers. It's with joy. Like fathers, with joy. So we have to be joyous working together and change the past that we have lived in for 10,000 years. And the Armenians came to the fore 6,000 years ago and contributed. And now we all have to continue contributing to this new world. Thank you very much.